the top 10 hottest books of the week based off of cover prices data. And Chris, this is an interesting week, isn't it?
Yeah, man. The last couple of weeks have been pretty saucy, man. It's a really good mix of spices here going on.
All right, well, I'm going to read off these spices and see what we make out of it. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Here we go. At number 10, we have Strange Academy number 1, the Campbell variant. We discussed Strange Academy with the Doctor Strange casting, and could it be Zelma? What's her last name? Stanton. Who knows? Only time will tell. At number 9, The Strange Talent of Luther Strode. This is an interesting image book that I am interested in checking out myself, but there's a lot of chatter about it being picked up. Number 8, we all know it. We all love it. Ultimate Fallout number 4. Number 7, Black number 1, which was, I do believe, it was in the top 3 last week. Number 6, Amazing Spider-Man number 300. We all know what that book is as well. Number 5, The Department of Truth, the Oswald secret variant. I'm interested in reading this myself. Number 4 is the Strange Academy number 1, the regular cover. Number 3 is Thor number 8. Jane Foster reveals she is the new Thor, and she has cancer, which they are going to adapt in Love and Thunder, the next Thor movie. Number 2 is Black Panther Annual number 1. And number 1 is Batman 100, the 1 and 25 variant. It's a beautiful cover. Chris, now, we don't normally, go into every single book. This list comes out on Monday. Our show is on Friday. We like to dig in, and you pick the 3 most interesting books you've seen from this list this week. So, Chris, let's just get into it. How about it?
My man. Double M, Eminem, Miles Morales. Number 3, Ultimate Fallout 4. Look, this book has not gone anywhere. I just ran the numbers on this book a couple weeks ago, too. This book has not cooled down. This book has continued to stay hot and continue to increase in fair market value, even if it was just, I believe, between August to September, towards the end of September, it increased by maybe just 0.5% in fair market value average. Sales slowed down a little bit, but the value was staying. And I remember back in May when this thing first started shooting through the roof, people were like, oh, it's the hype, it's going to be a couple months. And nah, it's not slowing down. Now the sales have picked back up. It's back on the top 10. It sold 21 copies last week, $1,000 for a CGC 9.8. So that $1,000 mark is still sitting. Now this book could be picking up a little steam just in terms of sales numbers, not value, but sales numbers, due to the rumors that have been going around about Miles Morales showing up in the MCU. Now, I'm going to put my opinion out there on this. I don't believe we're going to see Miles Morales in the MCU anytime soon. If I'm wrong, I will come here, I will come on my channel, and I will be the first to admit I was dead wrong. But look, Sony isn't going to give up their property rights to share for some type of bargain sharing with Marvel Studios and Disney. I don't see that happening right now. We're on the heels of the video game coming out, and we know that production of Into the Spider-Verse 2 is, on the horizon here, and we're going to get that film sooner than later. This character has so much potential, growth potential, under Sony's umbrella for them to say, okay, hey, even if it's just 10%, we're going to give you 10% of anytime you use Miles Morales in a Marvel Studios production. I don't see it happening. They're already sharing, Spider-Man, and they're already allowing Venom and all that to come in. Now, do I believe that it's going to be set up at some point in time? Yes, but him showing up in Spider-Man 3, I just think is ridiculous. It's almost as ridiculous as saying Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to show up. But so look, I'm just putting that out there because I don't want people to get their hopes up on something happening. But the big point of me picking this book up is, regardless of all these rumors, this book is hot, and this character, repeat myself here, is not going away. And honestly, I believe the I actually believe that the anticipation of him showing up in the MCU so soon, Jeff. What did I say? I said I think give it between like 5 to 7 years before we see him in the MCU. I think that the excitement about him showing up in a Spider-Man 3 is because it just shows how hot the character is right now and how much people are demanding him.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think he will show up within 3 years in the MCU, to be honest with you. He's too hot of a character. Marvel sees the need. I mean, they're going younger. They're going diverse. And he's just such a great character. There's plans for him. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you. I know you didn't say there's not plans for him, but I know
do believe there's plans. There are plans.
I know you're like,
absolutely.
Just slow it down, everybody. It's not going to be anytime soon. I think it'll be within the next 3 years. And I think Spider-Man 3 is a definite possibility for this to happen. Tom Tormey brings up a good point that they did allude to him in Spider-Man Homecoming, where Donald Glover talks about his nephew living in the area. So, let's, I don't know.
Remember, though, so Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, alluded to Spider-Man in 2008 as well. When did Spider-Man show up? 8 years later.
There's a big difference with that. The reason was there was no rights. This wasn't even a thing. Now, they're both companies are benefiting, okay? Both companies are benefiting. And I guarantee if you poll fans and ask, hey, would you prefer Miles to be in his own universe, or do you want him in the MCU, like similar to what's going on with Spider-Man? Everybody, I would say 95% of people will pick the MCU. That being said, that is demand. That is demand, and I guarantee you, I'm sorry I'm steamrolling you, but I guarantee you it'll be within 3 years.
Okay, so one, let's get this clear. He's not showing up in Spider-Man 3. Do you agree with that?
No, I think it's a possibility. I'm saying, I'm going out there. I think
that's next year, though. So that's in just over a year.
I think
so. That's not 3 years. That's basically 14 months.
But I'm saying that is a possibility. I'm not saying it's
okay. You're not.
Another thing within 3 years, and that falls within the 3 years.
And another thing is that this isn't about Sony using Miles in their own universe and having nothing to do with Marvel. It's about them not oversaturating the market, because Sony is already using Miles in the End of the Spider-Verse animated. So I think that's probably why. And remember just this last year, the talks about Peter Parker's Spider-Man being done with the MCU, when Tom Holland says, regardless, I'm going to be playing him, even if it's just for Sony. Now, I do believe, and I do agree, that Marvel has the upper hand here. Marvel has the upper hand, but I don't think we give Sony enough credit to say that, look, we want to hold on to it as much as we can. So all I'm saying is that I think both parties are involved. I agree with everything you said. I agree with the fact that he's a hot character. There's a lot riding on him being in the MCU, because that's where the money truly is, long-term, longevity-wise. But Sony is, you got to understand, and now I don't know 100% the details of this, but say this: if Miles Morales, the property, the intellectual property, is agreed upon contractually with Marvel Studios, it comes down to percentages. It means that Marvel Studios is getting a percentage. That also means that Marvel Studios is going to be getting a percentage of anything Into the Spider-Verse moving forward. So again, that's something that Sony really has to weigh out and say, not only are we going to say we're going to give you a percentage of the live action version of Miles Morales, but we have this. What did Into the Spider-Verse gross?
It was ridiculous, and it was well done.
$1 billion?
What's that?
Well, did it hit $1 billion? I don't think it was $1 billion.
But I think that's they're animated. It was incredible what they did with Spider-Verse, right? But they can't be trusted with their own properties. I'm sorry. And
I agree with that too.
Venom was a subpar movie. Venom was subpar, right? And for you to think that they're going to oversaturate the market by having the Spider-Verse and the Spider-Verse 2, as well as having a live-action Miles Morales in the MCU, I don't think that's the case. They're going to have Cindy Moon in Spider-Verse 2, guaranteed. They're also talking about having a Cindy Moon TV show. So the oversaturation argument, I don't buy into, because I think they could all have their pieces of cake, They can eat them too. Whatever analogy or phrase you want to use, I really believe. Again, I'll say it. I'm obviously passionate. I think Miles will be in the MCU within 3 years and possibly in Spider-Man 3. Maybe not as a major character, but an introduction, like a Captain America Civil War, where Spider-Man was first introduced in the MCU. But
and my thoughts on that, too, is that, Peter Parker's Spider-Man is still extremely fresh in the MCU. And that's another oversaturation of Spider-Mans. 2 Spider-Man in the MCU when we haven't even had Peter Parker and Venom or Peter Parker and Carnage build to that height. I think the one thing that we agree on is I think we agree on all the what's the word to use? We agree on the process. I think we disagree on the timing.
Yeah,
because on all the key points of why Miles belongs in the MCU and why it will happen, I think we agree on. But I just see more. I see more of a slippery slope between Sony and Marvel trying to play their cards right, and Sony trying to hold on to things as much as they can, even though in the back of their head they know that Marvel Studios is daddy at the end of the day.
Yeah. By the way, thank you, Collecting Chaos, for keeping us honest with the data here. $375.5 million. That's surprisingly low. But again, I think Sony needs the MCU more than the MCU needs Sony.
Absolutely. And absolutely. I do agree.
Right here, what this segment, though, is the top 10 hottest comic books of the week and the 10 that you picked. And that was just our first comic book. All right, moving on from Ultimate Fallout 4. By the way, I'm glad we got into an argument. We always agree on everything. All right?
Right. Yeah, that's
I win.
But interesting, though, and I want to say this to everyone watching. We were disagreeing, but agreeing with things at the same time. And I want to let everyone know, see, guys, you can actually have this big issue, right? And you don't need to see it black and white. There was a lot of agreements in there why we were disagreeing on some things too. So I thought that was awesome. But yeah, funny how this hot book, there's a lot around it. So, but yeah, moving on, number 2.
As well here. All right, so moving on. It's more MCU goodness too, though.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Okay, so my second pick was Thor number 8 from the 2014 Thor run. First reveal of Jane Foster's identity as the new Thor. This is when she did reveal that she was dying of cancer. Amazing cover. I do not know who that artist is, but awesome cover. This book is really it's not really going for much. Like a raw copy has been selling for anywhere from 10 to 20 bucks. You can still pick it up decently. At 9.8 did sell for 115 this last week. That was a high on the census. But look, we know what movie hype does. And this is one book that you're going to see some ebb and flows. Natalie Portman just came out talking about the fact that her character is going to be battling cancer. Okay. So what do? You go for that book. I mean, that's literally what this book is. So you got to take that into consideration. Like I always say, take heed. Don't go out and buy this book and think that just because it's hot and it made the top 10, that it's a book that you should pay $30, $40, $50 for or whatsoever. Look, if you're willing to dish out, 10, maybe 15 bucks, hold on to it, especially if it's in really high grade. This is a black cover. I think this is a modern book, though, that is getting hot simply because of speculative hype. I think this book is going to hold some value over time. Do I ever think it's going to be like $100 raw book or $200 raw book? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, hey, look, in 10 to 20 years, it could definitely maybe start pushing that. But I definitely think this is a book that you're going to see for a nice premium price. You're not going to really see it in back bins or bargain bins, for under $10, maybe ever again in high grades. And if this movie comes out and has success, because I know this character in the comics, there's a lot of loud hate, but I think there's a majority of people that really enjoyed the story of Jane Foster's Thor. And I know that there's been a lot of loud hate about, oh, that's not Thor. How dare there? I don't want to get into all that. But look, and I know there's been a lot of issues with Natalie Portman's portrayal and her relationship with Marvel Studios in the past. But look at what Waititi did with Thor Ragnarok. If he can come in again and make magic, and we can forget about the first 2 Thor movies and be blown away by this, it really has the potential to drive this Jane Foster character.
100%. We gotta. I just want to give a shout out actually to Roger Levesque and Thorough. Thanks for showing up, guys. Really appreciate it. This community is awesome. And then there's Roger saying what's up to Thorough. But yeah, look, Planet Arizona Comics brings up a good point. This whole run needs to be in everyone's collection. It was at the time was like, oh, why are they going to make a female Thor?
Yeah, right.
But it ended up being really good, and I agree. I agree. Planet Arizona Comics. And I just picked up this book the other day for $8. I was really happy to see it. By the way, Collecting Chaos, Russell Dauterman did that cover.
Nice,
fantastic cover. I'm super psyched for this film, guys. Again, Taika Waititi, just such a unique mind that comes to film. Just such a unique kind of guy that brings to life this imagery and these tones. Like, I don't know if y'all seen Jojo Rabbit, fantastic film, hilarious. Check it out. But also, he's also been he directed episodes of The Mandalorian as well. But his work on Ragnarok was just incredible. Super psyched to see Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
that is why this book, Thor number 8, is hot. And moving on, Chris, what do we got?
All right, number 1. This is where I bring my skepticism in, and we really look at, why this is hot. Looking at, modern, I don't call them gimmicks, but so many people call them gimmicks. Short-term value, long-term value, what it means to invest in a book like this. My number 1 pick was the Batman 100, the 1 in 25 Jimenez variant. This book sold 56 copies. That's about a 75% increase from last week. Fair market value dropped, though. So sales increased, but price went down. It went down from 68 last week to 45 for that high grade raw. And this is where we really question long-term value. Now, when you think about sales increasing, you could think, well, it must be that, demand is increasing. When demand increases, you think that supply decreases. But the thing here that you really got to look at is this is a new book. Although it is a limited, print run, there could be a lot of variables involved that are driving the price of this book down. And that could be that once, we could have had just a few days. When you think of a market and the validity of a market, you can look at one day, especially stock market. The stock market can change from day to day. That's the same with, any type of comic book, especially modern comic books such as this. So if the book is steadily moving and it's pushing up to that fair market value of 68, right? But then it hits a threshold of, say, $68, and people are saying, okay, well, I'm backing out now. Now it's getting a little bit too high. I'm not really willing to pay that much. I can wait. You get a couple of days where sales start to drop. And what happens then? Because demand is cooled off, price starts to drop. And once that price starts to hit market equilibrium again, then you get people putting their money in again. So what I see this happening is what we call in economics and finance as market equilibrium, okay? And that's where something hits the market and demand drives it up. But like I just said, I'm kind of repeating myself. People start pulling away. But once that price settles, you get more buyers in, and then the price kind of sits there. It hovers at that market equilibrium. It hits that fair market value that is true to form. You get 56 people buying the copy around that price within the week. Now, what does this mean long term? We really don't know. We can't sit and say if this book is going to hold this value 6 months from now, a year from now, 6 years from now. But the one thing that I think is extremely positive about this, and which makes these situations of these modern variants, the 1 in 25, 1 in 100s, what makes it extremely different about the 90s is this. This is extremely healthy for the primary market because people keep doing it. Regardless if this price drops off on this specific book, it's not hurting the primary market because there's going to be another one next week. There's going to be another one in 25 the week after that, and the week after that. It might be Batman. It might be, Spider-Man. It might be Marvel or DC or Image. The point that I'm making is that the primary market is benefiting from the fruits of these types of marketing products right now in the variant genre. So regardless of what they're doing on the secondary market, there's been no burnout on the primary market. And look, we have been in what I call the age of the variant for over a decade now. And yeah, I mean, it's continuing to pick up steam. But to me, there's no sign of fatigue, and there's no sign of anybody getting tired of this and pulling out saying, I'm just not buying into variants anymore. Because, I mean, they're steamrolling. They are steamrolling.
So basically what you're saying is this is still a desirable book, but at a certain price, right?
Well, there's the two factors that I want everyone to understand. And that one factor is that, yes, even though the book may be dropping off in fair market value and it's not going to hold essentially the same type of long-term value that it does when these books first hit the shelf. You have that FOMO. You have so many people going out of it. You have maybe, flippers and speculators that are buying multiple copies, selling to those that are so driven by FOMO that drives that initial price up. Everything cools off and balances out to that market equilibrium. But like I said, second piece of this is to understand that just because you see those prices dipping on the secondary market doesn't mean that the primary market is still not benefiting from the fruits of these types of books and genres. And when I say genre, the genre of the variant, the gimmick market, so to say. I think that market is extremely fruitful right now, and I don't see it cooling off anytime soon.
Yeah, either do I. I think a lot of it has to do with COVID, where people have, they're not going out as much. Those of us who do have jobs or are fortunate to have jobs, and they're able to spend money on kind of things that they normally wouldn't buy. And obviously, that's why the whole market as a whole has gotten hot recently, right?
Right.
But I hear what you're saying, and I don't think it's a negative thing in the industry whatsoever, especially if it kind of gives a boost to the publishers, because we want them to continue to be producing these comic books, right? This is what we love. We love collecting these books. And if that is a part of it now, if that is part of the business model, I think it's important that it's successful for all of us. And a 1 in 25 variant like this, it may have dropped. It's down to 65. What was it at its high fair market value?
No, it was 68. That was the high that it hit. Now it's down to 45.
45, I'm sorry. So that's an indication it's still a desirable book.
Right.
But again, at a certain price. And you're right, everybody goes after them because it's the FOMO, then you have the flippers as well. So,
yeah.
But
and just as a final statement to this, and this goes to me always being that voice of reason to those that get salty, about something that is different than how you collect. And that's all. I'm not saying one way or the other. Like, people just don't like different forms of collecting that's different than theirs. They think that something going on in the industry is hurting what they're doing. So, for example, people that get mad about variants, I mean, here's one variable, okay? And I'm not saying it happens all the time or this is directly correlated, but there's a strong possibility that if a certain issue has a variant that attracts the FOMO, to the variant instead of the standard issue, then look, there's going to be more of that standard cover A at your local LCS for you to pick up for cover price. So, or people are putting more money into, certain things. Look, I tell you right now, the market in general is hot. Blue chip books, Silver Age, Bronze Age, modern books are hot. Comic books are hot. Yeah. But I'll tell you, if everyone that collected variants started just going after silver, bronze, and copper age books, those books would be even higher because you'd have more people buying those. So I think we have a well-balanced industry right now where there's a lot of people collecting for different reasons, and it just keeps all of the sub-markets healthy, and I'm all for that, man.
Absolutely. I love what Roger Levesque says here. There's no wrong way to collect. If anyone says there is, then they are collecting for the wrong reasons. Absolutely. You can't dog people for what they do or what they go after unless it's hurting other people, right? So well said. And then, Planet Arizona Comics has a good point on variants. I love a good variant. It gives me a choice on which cover to buy, and also good for the companies because I might buy a book I normally wouldn't because of a great variant cover. Absolutely 100%. You guys all bring up great points. With that being said, this has been our top 10 hottest comic books of the week.